Professional Podcast. My name is Tanida Mullen, and on today's episode, we'll be talking to Brittany Pierce. Brittany is the creator of the television series Rhythm Abroad, and today she's going to tell us how she created this show and really took herself from idea to TV in no time. So if you want to learn how you can create a dream job with a big imagination and a little creativity, stay tuned. Welcome, Brittany, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Tanida, for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm really excited because this is kind of a unique show for us. I haven't yet had someone on the podcast that travels for a living, and so I'm really interested to hear about this, and I know the audience is too. So before we get into all of that, why don't you give us an introduction and about you and who you are and how you got to this place?
Well, my name is Brittany Pierce, and I am the executive producer and host of a travel series called Rhythm Abroad, which airs on public television and PBS stations across the U.S. It was my passion project, and I created the show from the ground up with a great team of help. And it has been a journey, but a fabulous journey. And I am very blessed. I get to do and travel the world and do what I love most in this world, which is international travel.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. And I'm pretty sure there's people listening to this show that, travel for a part of their job. It's just an aspect of what they do. But this is something that you do as the main objective. And so talk to me a little bit about how this all started. How did it get to this point? Where did you begin?
Well, I had just graduated college with my BA in broadcast journalism. I won a full ride scholarship in my senior year, which afforded me the funds to be able to, go see a little bit of this world. I was not raised with a silver spoon at all, so my family did not have the extra, finances just lying around to be able to take international trips. So when I got that money, I was able to take my first international trip, and I did a 2-week study abroad program to Costa Rica and Nicaragua. And that's where my love of international travel began. I knew that I wanted to do more of that. But after graduating college, I had a job down in San Diego, working as a news producer and reporter for some time. And after doing that for a couple of years, I moved back to Los Angeles, realized that, being in the news field wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing. I knew I wanted to be telling stories, and I knew I wanted to travel. So I thought, well, how can I marry those two? And so I thought, I'll be a travel host. But in my search for job postings that called for a travel host, they all called for a white male 50 plus. And I couldn't check off one box. At the time I was about 24 years old and, African-American woman. So I thought, is there really no space for me? And I thought, well, of course, there's got to be. I just need to create that space then. And so, God whispered to me, the universe whispered to me and told me, hire yourself. And it was clear as day, and that's what I heard. And I went for it. It startled me at first because I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, but I decided to hire myself. Now, I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I knew I just needed to continue to put one step in front of the other. So I just used my network and who I did have in my database to reach out to see how I could make things happen. And I teamed up with one of my colleagues from college who worked in the news industry as a news photographer, photographer, and asked her if she would come on and help me just film some things. We did not have any money to create a pilot or anything. We didn't have any money to even travel. So we had to be very creative in ways in how we were going to create a sizzle reel to get somebody interested in this show idea that I had. And we used the ethnic enclaves of Los Angeles as the backdrop, which made it look like we had a full season of shows, knowing good and well we had not left our butts from Los Angeles at all. So it just kind of came together. A producer, I got the interest of another producer, another independent producer, and just reached out to a bunch of people until all the kind of the puzzle pieces came together. And, got introduced to people within the PBS system that really helped pull all of this together. And it took a lot of persistence, I would say, in getting the right team members and in creating the show.
Wow, that is a really powerful story. And I'm thinking, like, we get so many opportunities a lot of the times, and we don't see them as opportunities. And I like the fact that you had this longing for something. You didn't see something that fit the version of what it is you needed, that was somewhere that you can see yourself. Like you said, what they were calling for and what the opportunities that were laid in front of you didn't look like what you envisioned, and so you created that opportunity. It was really, really funny when you talked about just creating the pilot and creating that vision just to get it off the ground, but you hadn't even left LA.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where, when you have a lack of resources, and this is not just myself, but people throughout the world in different countries that have a lack of physical resources, they rely on creativity to make it work. And that's the beauty of sometimes being broke, is that it pushes you to think outside of the box, or think as if there is no box really, and what else can I use to create,
Mm-hmm.
And that's, when you're creating, you rely on your creative juices. So
in the beginning, what were some of the things that you didn't expect? Like, I know that we're listening to you tell this story, but when you first got started and you started to see a little bit of steam behind the project and people were interested, what are some things that happen? Because I noticed that sometimes when people create and they get in this space and they start to see success, the success sometimes doesn't prepare you for the unexpected. What were some of those things for you?
Well, I mean, when I started this journey, I did not know really how I was going to make it happen. And I basically started almost a production company overnight. So there were a lot of pieces of the puzzle that I didn't know. It was like, I got a yes, but now it's like, what to do now? So I was probably on the biggest learning curve of my life, learning how to select a lawyer for contract negotiations and writing contracts, but, negotiating prices and things of that sort. I came from a news station which had all of the resources for me to produce a story. And now I was on my own, having to find all of those resources to pull everything together. So I think every step of the phase, every step of the stage was just a big learning experience, and can be stressful at times because you're on deadline. You got to get it right. You got to do it right. And so, you just breathe a lot. You breathe through it all, and you get through it, and you pray and all of that good stuff to help you get through it. And you rely on the support of friends and family to get you through those difficult times as you're learning in creating this all. I think it was very heartwarming once the show actually aired and you receive this influx of emails or comments through social media that the show is inspiring them. At first, I think the selfish reason, for lack of better words, as to why I started the show was, for my own self-gratification of wanting to pursue my own dreams. But then I realized somewhere along the way that Rhythm Abroad became bigger than myself and serving my own wants and desires. And I think Rhythm Abroad really serves as a show to show the underrepresented people of color that, you can get outside of your own backyard and you can travel the world and you can create your dreams, whether it's a travel show or whether it's being a marketing executive or, a scientist or whatever it is, you can will that and you can do that. And I hope that my story will serve as some inspiration for that. And I think it already is. And people are catching on to that and they write in and let me know about that. So that's extremely heartwarming. And that's probably what I didn't expect, was the fact that Rhythm Abroad would one day serve more than just myself and my own wants and desires, but really to inspire and to serve as a model for how to go after your dreams.
Yeah. That is exactly the answer I was looking for. But I want to talk a lot more about the travel.
Sure.
But I also want to talk a little bit about the process as an entrepreneur or just someone leading teams. I know in the beginning, I'm pretty sure it was just you and, your business partner or your
my colleague.
Yeah. And it at some point it probably grew. Your team is grown and it's larger now. How did you shift from being the creator, which is you and your colleague, to now working and managing a team?
That came with support. In finding the right people. You realize at some point that you can't do it all yourself. I didn't have the network. I didn't have connections to PBS. I didn't have connections to all of these different people to create the team. So it's never, one person, anything that you see out there, it's never one person doing it. And I think it's really important for people to understand that you can't do it alone. You definitely have the vision, but you're going to have to pull people in that really believe in your vision and in your dream to make that possible. So that, because you just can't wear every hat. So you're going to have to reach out to the right people and understand and making sure that they get your vision. You know what I mean? They believe in the vision and want to see this happen, and so once you're able to pull in the right people, you hope that it, is a well-oiled machine. And if not, you make adjustments,
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like, something that people can take, or that is really common in any situation. Like you said, you figure it out and you just kind of learn. And once you learn, then it's like, okay, good, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I'm really curious about is, you've traveled to so many different places, and you can, definitely name a few as you answer this question. But as far as young professionals go, like, what is it like? How are people in different parts of the world when it comes to their careers and their goals as a young professional?
What are the young people like in going after their profession? Is that what you're asking?
Well, what are the different experiences that you've had with the cultures of young professional, in different places?
Well, I've been to Spain, and as you're dealing with young people, it's cultural. I mean, in Spain they have the siesta, where they take a few hours during the middle of the day for a long break. And so, people seem very happy. And I think here in the U.S., a lot of times we are stressed about our job. We're thrown into high pressure environments a lot of the times. And in Spain, it seemed like and I'm not saying that there wasn't pressure or there wasn't stress. I'm saying that the way people came off, they seemed to enjoy life a bit more because they had this time really to engage with family and friends during the middle of the day. I felt like everybody was drinking wine and enjoying tapas. And at some point you stop and you think like, are these people working? But something's getting done. Something's getting done. And maybe it's getting done and more efficiently, and maybe people are more productive because they're not so stressed and they have time to enjoy the daylight and outside. I mean, I think about here on the West Coast and in California, we have daylight savings time. And when the time changes, sometimes we're going into the office really early and then we get off, late around 5 or so. And you didn't even get to spend any time outside of the office, really during daylight hours, which, it's just, it'd be nice to get away from the office sometimes, So I think, yeah. And, here in the US and in a very developed country, we're very fortunate that this luxury that we get to choose what it is that we want to do. And I think there's so much power in that, you know what I mean? And it really is a luxury, Other young professionals around the world, they don't get to choose because of their circumstances or their outcome, or there aren't their resources to help them go to school or, whatnot. So, we are fortunate, so we should take advantage of that and go for whatever it is that you are most passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And, I was just thinking about this, Brittany, the other day. I said, I just really love the idea of a siesta. I just think that it's something we need to do. Yeah. And as much as I want to incorporate that into my daily life, I'm not the final decision holder when it comes to that, but I do agree with you in a sense that, there's power in empowering yourself. There's power in being able to take a step back and really look at the world around you and take that pressure off, because I think it makes you better once you come back to it. And I do see why it is that a lot of people do decide to move to different areas that really appreciate that way of life. Mm-hmm. In the second thing you talked about, which was just appreciating the opportunities that we have to do what we want. And I think that's probably one of the main things that I enjoy about, having that luxury of choice here. And I try to take advantage of that myself. And I'm glad that you touched on that for our listeners. So the travel, that's got to be, I think people, when they think about travel, because I actually work in the travel and tourism industry. And so I think when people think about travel, they think about the good and just, you got your small bag and you just go. And, even travel commercials or marketing, it doesn't show you every aspect of travel.
Absolutely.
What do you think is the thing that people don't see when it comes to travel?
Well, in particular for our show, I think people think. I mean, I have a dream job. Yes, I do, and it is my dream, and this is what I've decided to do in my lifetime. But we aren't just sitting around and having tropical drinks on a beach. I mean, we work. Literally before the sun is up, we're up, getting ready. And we sometimes don't get back to our rooms that night. I mean, until really late at night. And then it's like doing it all over again. And so although the day is filled with all of these great experiences, you're thinking about shots and what you can do. So just in that aspect, it's tiring work. It's tiring work when we're there and travel. But just travel in general. I think when you get home from any type of trip or adventure, you kind of, even when you tell people stories, you kind of tend to leave out the things that might have irritated you or the bad things that might have happened, or the unfavorable things that happened. I like to kind of bring those up because I think it makes a richer story, right? Not everything goes perfectly as planned. You might go to a hotel and they only have so much hot water, and so now you're stuck taking a cold shower, or, well, there's glitches in our electricity. Sometimes the electricity goes out, so you kind of never know what's going to happen. Or you're getting bug bites, and, which, mosquitoes can carry disease and all of these different things. But I think the idea is that you never want to let those things prevent you from still exploring the world in which we live, right? You don't want to lead your life by fear. So I'm a firm believer that there is so much here to explore, and to get out there and do it despite, some of the things and the mishaps that might happen on your trip.
Yes. I find that really interesting just because we show the highlights, and you find out most about yourself in the not so sunny parts of travel, and then you kind of just adjust a little bit. You're like, next time, I'll do this or I'll do that. And so when it comes to international travel, I know you probably get a ton of questions. What is the number one question that you get as it relates to travel in general?
Probably how to save money. Everybody always wants to know how they can travel for less. And, there are different websites out there that can help you with travel hacking and figuring out, when is the best time to book, and, where to stay and how you can do it for cheapest. I'm not an expert in that, although I do love a great deal. And so there are a couple of sites that I follow, just for if there are glitches in the, an online booking site that's offering a flight for really cheap, I follow some of those sites, but that's probably the number one question I get is how to travel for less. And I think if there's a place that you really want to go to, you're just going to have to come up with a savings plan and make it possible, whether that's putting $200 away a month, because time is going to continue to pass. Time doesn't wait for anyone, So you're going to look up, and in 2 years, you'll have the money that you had been putting away for this trip, and you'll be able to eventually take it. So that's kind of my what I tell people is just find a savings plan, and, start off with some place relatively cheap or where the dollar goes, far. So, for example, Central America is a great place to start. You know what I mean? Nicaragua, it's a great place. And Costa Rica, and, your money goes a little further in those countries. Or you might want to try Southeast Asia, where the money goes further. I mean, the flight is kind of pricey, but once you get there, hotels are relatively cheap, and the food is relatively cheap, and excursions and all that good stuff can be relatively cheap. So, I guess allow your budget to kind of guide you around the world.
Yeah. And just start, I said, I love the idea of starting, somewhere, whether that be, the 2 hours from you on a weekend or the next day over, just kind of start and get out there. I think, I find that people get intimidated by just the idea of planning a trip, because it does take a little bit of organization. Yes. And even myself, that is one thing that is on my list. I mean, my dad was in the military, and so, I was a toddler when we were in Germany, and I want to go back. I want to experience that. I remember vaguely, but I see pictures and I'm like, wow, I was there. I want to go back. And, I think I love the idea of, you saying creating a savings plan, because one thing I will say is, I live in Texas, and just when I take a long drive, and I do a lot of travel in Texas, I get so inspired just by taking the long drives in Texas and the beautiful sunsets and the weather that we have here, and it's so inspiring. And so when I watch shows like yours, or I hear someone talk about, their travel adventures or international travel, it really inspires me and makes me want to go ahead and do that. So I'm glad you mentioned, the time is going to pass anyway. Just, save for it and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, getting out there anywhere, if you're starting here in the U.S. or you want to go to that national park you haven't been to, there are ways to make it happen. And the time is going to pass anyways. So just save. And before you know it, you'll look up and be like, wow, if I had started saving 2 years ago, I'd have that money now, So, yeah, I would say to continue to save.
So do you, now that you're traveling as a part of your career, what happens now? How old is the show?
Well, the show is still relatively new. It took me years before it all came together. And in those years, it was a combination of doing a multitude of things to kind of stay afloat and be able to pay my bills, and because this is what I wanted to do. So, I made that choice to make some sacrifices, but I guess getting back to your original question is the show is headed into second season. And so it's still a baby, and it's going to continue to grow and take on, I guess, a new shape and new form as it continues to grow. But so only time will tell, where Rhythm Abroad will go and, its final destination.
Wow. I just think that is amazing. And I was sitting there watching the show, and I was sharing that with you earlier. I thought to myself, I can tell that this was a situation where someone said, I want this and I'm going to figure it out. And that really inspired me to reach out to you because, whether it be travel or a promotion or starting a business, I love the idea of this, you saying, this for a while, this was essentially your side hustle until it became your main job and your main career. And I just love that because we tend to think that there's no way out or there's no way we can do things, and or the opposite, which I see a lot, is it's gonna be magical month number 1 or month number 2, and there's a lot of even in just what I'm doing, with podcasting, a lot of people hear the end game, but I'm thinking, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, I don't know how to edit this. I don't even know where to go. And, luckily we have Google and, we have YouTube and we have all that. But I really think that, and I appreciate you sharing the idea that it's not going to be pretty the whole time on your way to the goal.
Absolutely. And even once you've gotten there are going to be times where you have to do a sidestep and a little cha-cha, and you're going to have to change some things up, and you might have to go back to the drawing board, at different times. But you continue to walk in that pursuit of what it is, your vision, and go with faith, kind of.
So I'm pretty sure you've been to a lot of places. Two questions. Where's the best place so far that you feel like, just most inspiring to you? And where is somewhere that you just cannot wait to experience?
I think it's a toss-up between Tahiti and Nicaragua being the two places that really resonated with me, and for very different reasons. Tahiti was this dream destination. I mean, it's something that you see like as a screensaver, over water bungalows, this unreal blue kind of water. I mean, this just beautiful tropical destination. And the people, the smiling, and the dance, and all of that that comes with it. So I think Tahiti served kind of this dream destination, and just getting to the island of Bora Bora and landing there and seeing it all, and visiting Morea, that was a dream destination. But Nicaragua was my first international country, so it holds a really high place in my heart, because it's an unspoiled destination. It's not ran with a bunch of tourism, especially at the time that I went. That was back in like 2006. So it's been a while. It's been almost 10 years since I've been. But it was just unspoiled nature, and the people were very genuine and just wanted to talk to you and hang out with you, and but then also just allowed you to be, you know what I mean? It wasn't like there isn't an overwhelming amount of begging and, whatnot. So it was a really great destination, and plus I love Spanish. So being able to go and talk to the people and connecting with the people. And that's really where the show idea came from for Rhythm Abroad. I didn't know that I was thinking of this show idea, but my experience in Nicaragua in going to a local club and being one of the few Americans in the club, this guy had asked me to dance in broken English, and I responded in my broken Spanish that I would accept the dance, and we danced, and we couldn't really communicate verbally, but we were able to connect with each other through the universal languages of dance and music. And so that experience led to the birth of the idea of Rhythm Abroad.
Wow. And I think I love that. That is so true. Just music, dance, it connects us. And I just think the whole concept of the show is amazing. And I encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast, to make sure you go and check out the show, find out where, how you can view it on your local station, because it's really inspiring. And it's inspiring on a level not just of just travel, but just solidifying the idea that you just mentioned, which is that we're all connected in some way. So
yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
So we're going to wrap up this show a little bit. We're heading towards the end, and I have a few questions that I'd like to ask my guests from time to time when we get on the show. You've reflected a lot in this interview, and I appreciate that, because I think that's where people learn the most. But if you knew then, when in the beginning or before, what you know now with your experience, whether that be through production, creating, or travel in general, what would you have done different, or what would you have told yourself in the beginning or back then?
Actually, I'm glad I didn't know, because if I knew probably how much work it would have taken to get to where I had to go, it probably would have freaked me out and scared me, and not really knowing the end of it all. I just think it would have freaked me out. So I'm actually glad I didn't know what was ahead of me, and that I just had to stick it out and go with it. But I think I would have. I don't know, what advice would I have given my younger self? To probably have a really good grasp and sense of self, because during the time there are going to be trials, in trying to put together a business. So when you are and I was very clear on my vision, but sometimes there wasn't a whole lot of inner strength, because, things would happen, or it seemed like we were, going back to the drawing board, and I would get down, you know what I mean? And so just when you're embarking on a journey as big as creating a business, you know what I mean? There are going to be times where you're going to need to call on your inner strength to stay mentally sane and to stay in the game. So I think learning how to release stress is really, really important, because you're not productive when you're bottling in stress and doubtful or fearful or negative energy. So you have to figure out how to release that stress, and that can happen in all different ways, whether that's yoga or exercising, whether that's just laughing your butt off with friends or family. Maybe that's meditating. Whatever it is, you've got to figure out what works for you to release that and to draw on that inner strength so that you can stay mentally strong in the game, in your creation.
Wow, that is solid advice and just a great message to wrap up the show. But before we do, where can people find you? If people are listening to the show, they want to know more, they want more resources, where can they find you?
Awesome. So you're going to want to go onto your local PBS station website and type in the show Rhythm Abroad for show times and air times, or we also air on Create TV, which is a cable station. So you can go on to createtv.com and look for Rhythm Abroad show times and air times. You can also go to rhythmabroad.com to see where Rhythm Abroad is playing around the nation. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at Rhythm Abroad. And on Facebook, we're Rhythm Abroad with Brittany Pierce. So that's about it.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this. And I know, Brittany, somebody's going to listen to this show. And even if they just book a trip a couple hours away from their home, somebody's going to listen to this and they're going to get that travel bug and they're going to start.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I hope this show does is to inspire people to get out there and explore the world in which we live, and to be able to connect with people despite the language barriers, and being able to connect with people through dance and music.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tanida. Thanks for having me.
Wow, what a great story from Brittany. It just goes to show that with a little imagination and some creativity, you can really make some things happen. If you want to learn more about Brittany, the Rhythm Abroad, or if you just want to see all the links mentioned in this show, make sure you head over to thesavvyyoungprofessional.com for the show notes. I want to thank you so much for listening to The Savvy Young Professional. Please, please, please make sure you tweet me at thesavvyYP.com. Make sure you tweet me at thesavvyYP on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are all over social media. Oh, and even Periscope. Thank you so much for listening to the show, and keep it savvy, YPs.